All right. Good afternoon, everyone. You know it's after lunch. It's one of those time of the day that we may need some stretching to do, right? To get things going. All right. Today, I'm going to be talking about, oh, what fun, connecting to devices with your browser. My name is Ron Dagdag, and let's get started. All right. Well, raise your hands if you are one of these. Have anyone a IoT or a hardware firmware engineers here or have background with hardware engineering? We got two people. App devs, developing apps. All right. Any web developers? Want to see a lot of hands because we'll be talking about browser stuff. All right. So pretty much a lot of people that are that are here today are more of the web app developers. Have you experienced this one where it says, well, I can't find the printer. And then this one, it's like you need a driver. You need to install these different things in order to connect with your hardware device and your like in this case, the GPU. And sometimes it happens on Windows where now you don't have the device driver. You have to load these different things. And anyone have seen this before? Of course, a lot of people, most likely. You've seen this? This one? Where now I have to install another driver. And even toys nowadays, you have to install this app. And there's one app after the other app just to control things, just to connect with your hardware devices. Why is that, right? And sometimes doesn't feel like this, right? Where it's like frustrating and it's like, oh my, right? It's just frustrating sometimes where you have to tell your users you have to install this other thing, you have to go through these process. And for the past few years, I don't know, this one is true. The web eats everything in its path. You know, you've seen it where graphics, animation, motion input, real-time 3D, you know, the camera, messaging, a lot of things, you can do it on the browser itself. And then there's real-time messaging, Internet of Things. Now it's more the robotics part, right? And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. That not everything needs to be connected all the time, right? That not everything needs to be, and only connect these hardware devices or when you need it. And only sandbox devices can request limited access to those devices. So that's where we're going to be talking about webMIDI, webBluetooth, webUSB, and webNFC. I'll try to demo a little bit of each one of these features. So what is MIDI? MIDI is a musical instrument digital interface. That's what it meant. Anyone familiar with this? A lot of pianos, the digital pianos have MIDI integrated, right? You can connect it to your laptop. And typically, it's digital music instruments that you can connect it to. But it can also do computers, tablets, and smartphones. And it's back in 1981. This technology has been there for a long time. There is a webMIDI API, and there's 4 steps in order to connect to a webMIDI API. So using the browser, connect to a MIDI device. One is you request the access, then you scan the relevant device, add the event listener, and then start decoding messages. Of course, you know, in order to decode the message, there's a standard, MIDI standard, that you want to learn about. In order to do this, the first few bytes starts with 1001, in this case, to determine if the note is on, and then the data to identify what is the key. So the middle C is 60, and then the velocity. So those are the things that you need to understand in order to connect to a MIDI device. So how would you use a webMIDI API? First thing is request the access. So you would use navigator.request MIDI access, and that is already part of your browser. and then it would give you the object MIDI access, and then you can use MIDI access.input.values to scan the relevant device. And once you have that relevant device, you can add an event listener and then decode that message. And that's it. That's the 4 steps involved in order to get to connect to your webMIDI. Today, I am going to demo this little bit MIDI device, which is I have here. Let's see if I can show you. I have this set up. Y'all can see that? Yes? Good. So this is my MIDI device. And I have a demo. See if I can make this a little bit larger. So this webMIDI, and what I'm going to do is, I load it. Notice how it's detecting that on the USB connection from this device that I can click play, and then when I start clicking the buttons here, see if I can know this right, and you should see that it can read the data from my device. I don't know if you can hear the sound a little bit, not as loud, but I can press buttons from this device, and my website was able to connect and understand the data that's coming from the MIDI device into the browser. So that's a simple example, and I have a code related to that that is on here, and doing all those 4 steps. All right, so that's a good intro to a little bit webMIDI. So webMIDI is available through a lot of browsers. About 76% of the browsers that are available out there has this capability. Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Opera, Samsung Internet. You can actually connect it to your phone, so you can use a webMIDI device and connect it to the browser. I did not have to install anything on my machine. Everything that I need in order to connect to the webMIDI device, to the MIDI device, already comes from what is in the browser. Cool? Yeah. So this is another error out there that I've seen. Task failed successfully. It's a weird error, but that happens. Okay, let's move on to Bluetooth. What is Bluetooth? Bluetooth is a standard specification for wireless communication standard. It is a short distance. Everyone here most likely has Bluetooth device, and sometimes whenever you're trying to connect to a Bluetooth device, there's a maximum distance that you can use to connect to, right? It was started back in 1994, and it's called, original name is short link radio technology, and of course, it has become standard through the Bluetooth Special Interest Group. It was started by Ericsson back in 1994. There are about 14 million devices shipping every day that is Bluetooth enabled. Isn't that amazing? Right? I mean, a lot of devices, IoT devices, a lot of these devices that are out there, watches and all these different things. Even toothbrushes have Bluetooth devices nowadays. So fun fact about Bluetooth, it is actually that symbol. Most likely you've seen that before, right? It is actually a combination of 2 letters from the Norse rune alphabet. It was Harald Bluetooth. That's why it's named Bluetooth, is because of it's named after 10th century king of Denmark. So webBluetooth, it is a way to control Bluetooth devices directly to the web. And in order to connect to webBluetooth, it has to be HTTPS only. So it's secure first, and devices have to be paired in order to have that connection. There's user interaction and approval required in order to connect, and it is ES6 promise-based API. So think about Bluetooth as kind of like a web server, but the server itself, it is actually the device itself. The client is your computer or your cell phone, right? And the server, there is a generic attribute profile that determines what are the services and characteristics that you can connect to. Characteristics are the services, each one of the command that you can call. So you can actually read, write, and notify or subscribe to a channel. In order to do some development on the webBluetooth API, you have to go through navigator.bluetooth, and you have to invoke the user interaction, a button click, and then specify the filter or device you're trying to connect to. So if I can't connect to all the devices, I can only connect one device at a time in order to use the webBluetooth API. So steps in order to connect to your webBluetooth API, about 6 steps. First is you need to pair it first with Chrome, so you can connect to it. Make sure that it's paired from your phone or in this case on my laptop. And then you scan for that relevant device, connect to it, get the services that you are interested in, get the characteristics that you're interested in, read and write and subscribe to to the characteristic you're interested in. So in this case, first step 1, find the matching device. So I would request it to navigator.bluetooth.request device, and I can filter all the Bluetooth devices that are available out there, right? And then you ask the permission from the user. It would prompt something like this. It would tell you which one you want to connect to, and then it would return the promise for a selected device object. And then step 2, you would connect to it, connect the device using GATT server. It would return a GATT server object, and then based from that, GATT server, you have to understand which, there's identifiers. So in order to do development into one of these Bluetooth devices, of course, there's the client side, which is the one we are building, or the web Bluetooth. But there's also the firmware side. That means the program that runs on the Bluetooth itself, right? So for example, if you're talking about a watch, and you're trying to connect Bluetooth on that watch, there is code that's running there that is the service itself. And then you have to know what services that is available using the GATT profile, and then what are the characteristics that is available. And then there's a specific identifier that you need to know in order to connect to it. And then once you have the characteristics and able to get the promise, to get the object, and then you can read the characteristics, the values of that one, and then you can display it. So or you can start writing to it. So whenever you're setting configuration to your device, you have to understand what are the different things that you can do in order to, what are available out there. So I'm going to use this microbit in order to do this demo. Okay. See if I can. So this is a microbit device. So this actually microbit device is, let's see, is webBluetooth enabled. So it has Bluetooth in it, but you can actually do programming on it using, let's see, make code. Let's see if I can get to that. So the firmware or the software that's running on this microbit. I did use this make code that is available online that you can actually program and send to this device. So whenever it starts the Bluetooth, it actually connects to it. And then I can call some information. So let's see if I can do that. Where's my, this is my device. And then I'll go this code. I can connect to it. Okay, it says an error not found. Let's try again. So we tried to connect. Of course, there's a lot of Bluetooth devices that are around me at this point. So let's see. Let me try to load it in a different browser. See if you'll see it. Connect. Okay, it looks, usually it will show up here, the device, but let's see if I can start over, or maybe it's on somewhere. Okay, it's giving me an error, so we will get back to that. So one thing that I wanted to show you guys is that the Chrome browser has a way to look at all the Bluetooth devices that are around you. If you go to Bluetooth internals, you can actually click on devices. And of course, I'm going to start scanning this. And all the Bluetooth devices that are around me over here, it will try to scan. And each one of these, you can actually inspect and try to connect. And like in this case, you can get the GAT and some of the services that are available out there. It might be my browser that might need to restart, but that's how you would connect to it. All right. So you can actually see some of the devices or the adapters and all that too. Okay. Since I don't have a lot of time, I'm not going to focus on the webBluetooth side. We're going to continue on with the webUSB, but it's about the same. It will prompt you, and then you will be able to give you the connection, and then I can read and write to it. So, like I said, the Bluetooth internals actually allows you to be able to scan Bluetooth devices to kind of understand where you can connect to, and understand what are the available services and characteristics that you can connect. There's also a phone app that you can use, but it's part of Chrome that you can do this. So webBluetooth, where is it available? Chrome, Edge, it's about 73% of the browsers out there. It also works for Chrome for Android. One thing that's missing here is that it does not work with iOS. So Safari on iOS is not available. Samsung Internet, a lot of the Safari and Firefox, it is not available, but you can connect using Chrome. All right. Let's start with USB. Anyone familiar with USB or have used USB? Most likely, if you need to charge your phone, where's my USB cable, right? There's lots of versions of USB since then. There's USB 1, USB 2, USB 3. The latest one is USB 4, which every time they have new version, typically it's higher speed. In this case, USB 4 can go up to 40 gigabit per second, up to 120 gigabit per second. That's a lot of data that you can transfer now. Different types of USB, most likely every one of us here has a collection of these at home, and a lot of different versions of it. And do you know why Type-C or the USB-C has, I don't know if you've noticed that they all look the same, that it does not have these clamp that it can connect to, because they realized when they were designing the Type-C, they realized that most people's problem with USB-C is you have 50% chance of plugging into your port correctly. I don't know if you've seen this, where you plug it once and you have to twist it and all that. And so this made it really easier for, for Type-C. But I've noticed that not all manufacturers, there's different types of Type-C cables out there. And some manufacturers actually does not do the full spec, that it only works with one side, that you can't even flip some of the, if you have to flip it on the other side sometimes when it does not work. Anyone familiar with this logo of USB? It is actually from that. So the logo itself, looks like it's a connection, right? It's like a cable from, from the left side where you have the zero or the circle to different devices. Notice how it has a plus, a triangle, and square. It is actually that trident, from Poseidon, right? So that it will have the connection, right? But that's how they built the logo. Thank you. And how to use webUSB API. webUSB API, the first thing that you need to you have to understand USB standard in order to use this API, and also the cross-origin resource sharing. So it requires you to be able to identify which website you're trying to connect to, or limit it, so that you can't just plug in a device and then connect to a specific one. So 6 steps in order to do this. You request device, then you connect to it, and then you have the select configuration, then you claim the interface, then the control transfer, you set up the control, and then you transfer. So notice how there's a pattern on each one of these, right? It's always requesting where you are going to connect to, then you connect to it, then you have to identify which one of the configuration or services that you can connect. Interface is kind of like services, characteristics, and then, it's the handshaking that you need to understand. So requesting the device, I would use navigator.usb.getDevices to get the list of devices that are available. Then it would prompt something on the screen that you can filter using the navigator.usb.requestDevices, and you filter it with the vendor ID. So you need to identify the vendor ID and the product ID in order to connect to it. And then you select the configuration. This.device.open, and then this.device.select configuration. So once you have the configuration, you can claim the correct interface. So a lot of these is from the specification of that USB device that you're connecting to. You need to understand what is the configuration that you can connect to, and the interface that you can connect, and what it can that is available there. And then the control transfer, this is the handshaking, where you specify the request type, the recipient, the request to receive the proper data. And then on the transfer side, you can, if you want to receive data from the USB device, you specify some of the control transfer, then on receive, and then read the loop. So of course, each manufacturer, however they program their USB interface, you have to work with them. So in this case, I'm using this Chrome. I'm using the microbit. So let's see if I can connect to that again. Well, of course, another tip, Chrome://device log allows you to look at all the USB devices that are actually connected into your machine, and then the USB internals too. So let's try to go there. So device log, let's see if it will detect the one that I just clicked on. Of course, there's a lot of them. So when I unplug, Where is my camera? I'll try to plug this in, see it'll show. So notice how it gives me the vendor ID, the product. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of small. I guess I can't. Oh, I can make that bigger. It tells you the USB that I just connected to. This is the BBC microbit, the vendor ID, and all these different things. And then if I want to learn about the USB internals of this device, see if I can make that larger. See, notice how this one is microbit. I can inspect it. It gives me what are the different, the device descriptor, some of the info about that, the configuration. So it goes through like a more detailed information about how you would connect to this. So in this case, I have this microbit. I will try to connect to it. So this microbit, I have a code that I programmed it on the firmware side. I'd say on the serial, every time it connects to it, it would just give me some values or dump some values on the serial port. And then when you receive data from the serial, when you receive data, send it out. Okay? And then on the webUSB side, what I'm going to do is see if I can connect to it. Notice how it prompts something on the screen. It says connect to this USB, and I hit connect. And now that I'm connected to it, I should be able to see some data flowing through. It says waiting for connection. Okay, sometimes I may need to restart because it's connected. Hello. Or maybe the other way. Let's try this other one. I have two, just in case. Connect. See, notice how I'm getting data now from this device. And so I'm just getting the same steps that I showed you. So let's try since I have a little bit of time, let's try the Bluetooth one. So we're here. So I'm going to disconnect to that. Same way, we're going to try the Bluetooth device right here. And I'll go back. So the webBluetooth one, I can try to connect to it again. Notice how it prompts something on the screen. It tells me that is the device, not everyone's device out there that I'm connecting to. And I hit pair. Now that it's paired, I can click on one of these buttons. Kind of shows, it's upside down, okay? All right, so I can click one of these or turn it off, and I was able to control the device using Bluetooth connection. So that's webBluetooth. All right, isn't that interesting? Yes? Okay, so I did use webBluetooth, webUSB. Of course, unfortunately, does not work with Safari. It only works with Chrome, Edge, Chrome for Android, Samsung Internet, Opera, but it's about 73%, 74% of all the browsers out there, it is available. Or 70%, 4% of global population. All right, so this is another error message that popped up that is real. There's 3 things that are certain: death, taxes, and lost data. Sometimes, I guess that's what happens when you have corrupt file. So guess what happened? So you have to restart the application. I thought that's an interesting error. All right, so there's also another device, the Wio terminal, that you can use for AI. Then I've noticed that a lot of some of the devices out there are getting smarter. You can actually program some AI on it and then still connect to the browser, or to your browser if you need to. And okay, let's move on. Let's talk about web NFC, or what is NFC, right? NFC stands for Near Field Communication. It was started or patented back in 1983 by Charles Walton. And it's contactless technology. Most likely you're familiar with it because you've used it. I've used it this morning. Anyone familiar with this one? I guess the tram or the train tickets? It's using RFID technology. It has two modes, passive and active mode. Most likely this is a passive mode. It does not require any power in order to connect to it. So passive and active mode. So what is web NFC? It enables web application to read and write NFC tags. It can communicate with other NFC devices, smartphones, smart cards. NDAEF is a standard in order to connect to this and read the messages. It is available only for Chrome, for Android. To use web NFC, 4 steps. First, enable the NFC reader, scan the NFC chip, add the event listener, and then start decoding the message if you just want to read the data. So enable the NFC reader, you create this NDEF reader, and then you scan the NDEF reader, and then you add an event listener and decode the message. In this case, we're just going to read the serial number of that NFC tag. All right, let's go back there. Of course, in order to do this, I don't have NFC on my I don't have NFC on the laptop, so I have to use my cell phone in order to do this. See if I can connect to it. Okay. Okay, so this is my phone. I would use web NFC, and I can scan the NFC tag. It is waiting for me to scan my ticket. Oh, sorry. Can you see it? Yes. Okay, let's try to go back. Web NFC. I can scan the NFC tag. I can use this. And it read the serial number on my ticket. And you can read more information. You can use this to where you can forward to something else. But the good thing is I didn't have to install an app. I don't have to create an app. It comes on the browser. However, you need to read the NFC tag, right? So I don't have to tell the user to install another app. Isn't that interesting? Yes? Yeah. So web NFC, about 40% of the browsers that are available out there is only available for Chrome on Android and Baidu browser. It's early, but it's good enough if your target user only use Chrome for Android. This is an interesting one, error message that I found a long time ago. Keyboard not found, press F1 to resume. There's no way it's useful, but it is out there. So, okay, so there are other things other than these 4 items that I did talk about today. There is Web Serial API that actually is better to use if you're doing serial port connection to read and write rather than webUSB. There's webHID, which is simpler, especially if you're doing keyboard, mouse. It's better to use webHID for input and output. It abstracts webUSB and webBluetooth APIs. If you are interested in trying out what I did today, and also you want to read if you want to get the PowerPoint presentation I have, do scan the QR code. That is a QR code. Kind of like it because it looks different from the other QR codes that are out there, but it would work. Or you can actually remix glitch.me if you want a copy of this, and then try it out. Oh, were you able to get down? All right. In summary, webMIDI, it's the easiest way to learn if you're going to try to experiment on this. To learn and pick up, there is a MIDI message format that you need to understand in order to connect to the device. There's the webBluetooth. Remember, every time you would connect to it, you have to create or understand the firmware that's running and how to communicate to it. But the important thing is you pair the device first, and you need to understand a little bit of the GATT profile. webUSB, the most difficult one because you have to understand the USB standard and how to work it first. And then, of course, whoever is the manufacturer or how you're connecting to, you have to also understand what is available, the services or what is available, things that you can get to or subscribe to. Microbit and MakeCode, I think it's a good way to start learning about development. If you have kids at home, it's easier to kind of showcase how you could do, especially on these hardware devices. Glitch actually makes it easy to create and share or remix some of these projects if you want to try it out. If you are interested in learning more about me, my name is Ron Dagdag. I'm a software engineer at Spacey. I am from Texas, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP, 6th-year awardee. If you're interested in connecting with me, at Ron Dagdag. And I appreciate you spending time with me talking about error codes, about IoT devices that are available out there. And have a great day. Thank you.